here from Games, Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life with a tier list. A solo tier list because I am, of the staff at GBHBL, the only one who reads Discworld, or at least knows it as well as I do. This is a book series that has been massively influential on my life. Something I've explained a lot in other videos, but Terry Pratchett's Discworld, Terry Pratchett himself is an iconic figure for me. Someone I greatly admire, a series that has helped me through difficult times while also being incredibly entertaining. So the thought of even ranking them is quite daunting, particularly as there's no bad books. There's no books that I'm like, okay, that's just not a good book. So as you can see via the ranking on the screen, I've changed the categories to the best, great, very good, good, and okay. And even okay, I'm like, that's a bit harsh. But that's just how I feel about the series overall. There are ones that are better. It's going to be very, very hard to really get the best category sorted. We're going to give it a go. All 41 Discworld books are here. Everything from the very beginning, Colour of Magic, all the way through to the Tiffany Aching younger audience stuff, or at least what started off as younger audience stuff, kind of end up tying directly into Discworld. And it's one of them we start with, Wintersmith. Now, I will say the Tiffany Aching stories aren't my favourite. I like some of them more than others. Some I remember. I'd say they're some of my least read stories of Discworld. I think when they came along, I found Tiffany Aching not annoying, that's the wrong word, because that's not the character, but more just like a poor imitation of Granny Weatherwax. I get it. Granny had reached the apex, you know. She wasn't going to go any further, so the idea was to try and introduce a new witch. Someone who could effectively lead the witch side of the stories, and that is what Tiffany Aching is. But I never really connected with her, certainly not in the same way as I did with Granny. But I do like Wintersmith. It's one of my favoured Tiffany Aching novels. So I think it's a great place to start by putting this one in the good bracket. Wintersmith is a good book. So we start there. And then we come to one of my all-time favourites. We have Thud right there. Thud is one of the later watch/guard stories, the ones that star the likes of Vimes and Carrot and Agnew and stuff like that. This is quite far along in that side of the stories, but it is an incredible one. It's one of my favourite. One that delves really deeply into historic events that have taken place on the Discworld. It's thrilling. It's absolutely interesting. It's got a fantastic finale, something that really, really gets the blood pumping. I think Thud is one of the best Discworld books, so it goes on the best. It's the first of the best. And then we have Thief of Time, which is one of the death stories, starring Susan Stowe-Heliot. Not one of my favourite characters, unfortunately. Susan I've always found to be a little bit bland, and her stories, the death stories full stop, are not really my favourite series of books. There are some that are better than others. Thief of Time is one of the better ones, absolutely, and mainly because of its quite frantic story. I always enjoy the introduction of the auditors, and they're heavily featured in this, but I do like the time aspect of it. It's really interesting, and I love the race against time. It's not, I don't think I'm going to put it in the best, but I think great is a fair place for Thief of Time. Great. Which brings us then to Monstrous Regiment. This is very much a standalone one, and it is probably my least favourite, up there as my least favourite stories. I just don't love it. It's as simple as that. The war aspect and the different locations and things we'd never experienced in Discworld is cool, but the whole women's roles storyline, while initially interesting, I think goes too far in the end, and it starts getting a little bit silly. But I do like the main character. It's just one that I've read, probably the one I've read the least. It didn't grab me the first time around, especially not with the way Discworld novels normally do. I think this is just okay. I think this is the first of the okays. We then have Reaper Man. Going back to an early story, it's I think it's the first of the death stories. This one is very influential on me because of how much of this book is featured in the game Discworld 2, Missing Presumed, or Discworld 2 Mortality Bites, depending upon where you're from. This is really influential on me because of that. It uses a lot of elements from it. This, obviously, when I played the game, when I read this and I saw the likes of Windle Poons, I was just so pleased. Funny enough, that's the side of the story I love. The death stuff about, wanting to be more human and living upon the farm and all that doesn't really do too much for me. But the story set in Ankh-Morpork, the creation of the shopping malls and stuff like that, it's very, very clever stuff. I do like Reaper Man. It's not, I think, very good. I think very good is a good place to that. So we've got one in each ranking now already. Which brings us to Guards, the first of the Guards books. This introduces all our future favourite characters. We see the origins of Carrot. We meet Vimes as he is nothing more than an alcoholic. And of course, it's about dragons. This is a really well-told story. And it said the introduction of characters that would grow to absolutely adore. It's very early days for them here, but it's such a strong starting point. Guards, it goes in the best. I'm just trying to decide, does it go before or after? Before Thud. It does. It's probably the best book so far we've put in this. And it's continuing with the Guards story. It is the Fifth Elephant. One of the things I love about this is how it takes us away from Ankh-Morpork, the kind of safety net for the Guard side of the story, and puts us somewhere else and tells us a much deeper and wider. It was not that it was the first time, because we had gone other places, but it was going to. For me, it felt like it was widening the political story. It's a very political book, Discworld politics, that kind of thing. But it is very, very interesting. It's got a very, very mysterious feel to it, and you get reveals at the end. It's very, very clever. I don't think it belongs in the best. I think it belongs in the great, but top of great. Okay, Weird Sisters. Not the first appearance of Granny Weatherwax, but the first appearance of the Granny Weatherwax we would grow to love. This one is heavily influenced by Shakespeare's Macbeth. And because of that, unfortunately, I don't love it. I'm not a fan of, Shakespeare's works, if that makes sense. And certainly not Macbeth, even though I understand its iconic nature. And I like what Terry did here. And he building up his characters, particularly this unit of Magrat, Granny, and Nanny Og. But it's still very early days for them as the characters I would really, really love. I think Weird Sisters goes in good. Above Wintersmith, though. Which brings us to A Hatful of Sky. Oh, and I Shall Wear Midnight. It's another two Tiffany books. I'll do these two together. These are two, truth be told, I don't remember as well. But I said at the start, Tiffany Aiken books aren't ones that I have read regularly, particularly as they're later books. And I often go back to the start with Discworld and then just work my way through them then. But this is developed. This is a developed story. Wintersmith is the strongest one. Both of these are strong stories. Particularly I Shall Wear Midnight that really, really pushed the Granny narrative to the max here. I don't want to put any spoilers, but yeah, this is that one probably. All right, I'm going to put A Hatful of Sky in good after Wintersmith, and I'm going to put I Shall Wear Midnight in very good after Reaper Man. Which brings us to The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. I wasn't really sure if this one belonged in the Discworld novels for a long time, but it has been listed as such, so I believe it does. I wasn't sold on this at first. Obviously, it's kind of telling the tale, telling the tale of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and but with the Discworld twist of a talking cat and so on. But this has got real heart, a real heartfelt story. It is fantastic. Its finale, its latter quarter, should I say, is really, really thrilling. I love the villain, and the villain has inspired me to date. As of time recording, I was actually only talking about this thing a few days ago. So, that much how much of an impact it had on me. It belongs in the great, but I'm going to put it at the bottom of the great. So there. Carpe Juggling. So, when I first started reading Discworld, I read a couple out of order. And I think it was 3 in total. I think it was Carpe Juggling, The Colour of Magic, and there was one more, I can't quite remember what it was. But Carpe Juggling was the one that stood out the most for me. This is the Granny that I absolutely adore, the Nanny I adore. But it combines so much. Vampires as villains is an easy one, but I love the way Terry writes them. I love how they behave in this. I love the eventual resolution. I love what happens to Nanny in this. I love the other elements of Nanny and the follower of Om and the touch upon the religion, particularly reading this after I'd read Small Gods made it even more interesting Carpe Juggling is fantastic. I think it belongs in the great, not the best, the great, but I'm going to put it at the top ahead of the fifth elephant. Then we go to the very starting point, the colour of magic. Now, a lot of people say this, and I'm going to reiterate it. When it comes to the colour of magic and starting the Discworld, it is a difficult read at first. The Colour of Magic in particular, and arguably the Light Fantastic alongside it. These are written in a different way to what later Discworld books would be. The elements are there, but they're less focused on the British humour and way more focused on fantasy. They're also very fast-paced, moving through a lot of locations very, very fast with action sequences and stuff like that. I think it makes for a difficult book with a lot of difficult words, so to speak, a lot of terminology that Terry wanted to use in the Discworld series that he would later drop anyway. But this does introduce us to Rincewind, one of the most iconic characters of Discworld, and very important to me from the game, of course, previously mentioned. But I also love Two Flower as a character too. I do like the Colour of Magic, but I can acknowledge that it's not the easiest to read, and it's not one that I look forward to reading. So I'm going to put it in okay, but ahead of Monstrous Regiment. Which brings us, scroll back up, brings us to Eric. Eric. It's a very, very short story. There is that, thankfully. I probably might put this as the one I dislike the most, even though I do enjoy a lot about it. I enjoy, obviously, the Rincewind thing. I enjoy the resolution of what happened after Sorcery, even though it's a little bit of a cop-out, maybe. But Eric as a character, I just don't buy into. However, it's got some real fun sequences. It's got a real tongue-in-cheek, silly story and goes to places we hadn't experienced yet. But it is Eric, and it's just okay. And I'm going to put it at the bottom of okay. I think I might even prefer to read Monsters Regiment. The appeal in Eric is that it's short. Feet of Clay. Love Feet of Clay. We're back with the Guards. This is an absolutely stunning story with some real touches on morality and what's right and wrong, and many real deep meaning behind a lot of what is told in this. A lot of later stories, particularly the Guard stories, would do this, and Feet of Clay has that. I think this is fantastic. I don't think it's the best. I'm going to put it in great. Yeah, great's a good place for this to go. But the top, ahead of Carpe Juggling. Move it across, there we go. Going Postal. Man, the impact this had on me. I couldn't believe Terry could still write. So stupid. I couldn't believe Terry could write this good still when Going Postal came out. This is what I love. Absolutely love Resolute. What you would call it? Where a character starts off bad, so to speak, and has a chance to change his ways. That's a common theme for a lot of Discworld books, but Going Postal absolutely nailed it. Moist von Lipwig is one of my favourite Discworld characters. And this book just fills me with warmth and heart, and there's some great moments. I absolutely adore the part where Moist denies that he ever killed a person, and his captor does it via percentages, and it's just a shock of that for Moist is just fantastic. It's beautiful, it's pretty, it's emotional. Going Postal, to me, is top of the best. To me, it is currently where we're at, my favourite Discworld book. Hogfather, a Christmas-themed one that touches upon a lot of fantastical elements, dreams and stuff like that. It is a death book, heavily features Susan. Don't love this one, truth be told. I don't mind the Christmas theme, and I love the villain of Tea Time, or Tea Time, how he likes to say it. He's very, very sinister, a very human villain, and he's interesting. But Susan, just like I said before, just doesn't grab me. And Death definitely takes a bit of a back seat to this one. It is a good book. It's got a lot of interesting and funny sequences. Very amusing at times. But I think I'm just going to put this in good. And I think top of good. Yeah, I'd rather read Hogfather over Weird Sisters. Interesting times. The reuniting of Two Flower and Rincewind. This took us to Two Flower's home, which was heavily based on ancient Chinese culture, which added a nice touch to it. There's a really clever story told here. The melding of two styles. Whereas before, Two Flower was the tourist in Rincewind's world. It's Rincewind as a tourist in Two Flowers' world. And it's good to have that concept of Two Flower not being a wide-eyed idiot that he was in Colour of Magic and The Light Fantastic. Here he leads the story a lot more. It is another great Rincewind story. I love The Curse. May you live in interesting times. It's fucking great. The book itself, I think it's going to go at the top of very good. I can't see me putting any Rincewind story near the bottom. I just can't see it. Jingo! We're back with the Guards for an excellent tale of war and mainly the people making decisions behind the ground troops. A brilliant contrast here. It's another one of those where you just cheer on our characters. Vimes, Carrot, Nobby. By this point they're established, and the lengths they go here and where it heads is just wonderful. Jingo is a great story. It goes in great. It really does. I'm going to put it... better than the Fifth Elephant? Oh, yeah, you know what? Better than Carpe Juggling? Yeah, I'm going to put it directly by Feet of Clay. Absolutely. Those two are basically joint. The Lost Hero, more of a graphic novel than a story. It deals with Cohen, the barbarians, and them going back to the gods, basically to fuck them up, in so many words. It's interesting. It's fun. I love the character. I love the lead character of Cohen. He appeared a few times throughout the stories. He's just a wonderfully bitter old man, and that makes for a lot of fun. Obviously, we've got other characters here. We've got a lot of melding here. We get Carrot, Rincewind, the librarian, Cohen, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool, but it's not that memorable. It truthfully isn't. Visually, for the artwork in it, it's good, and that's why I'm going to put it in good. But I'm going to put it at the bottom of good. And then we come to The Light Fantastic, part 2 of The Colour of Magic. Although it's a separate story, you really should read these two one after the other. Make sure you do to really fully appreciate as it continues that story. Takes it in a much deeper, darker and epic, grander direction. We've still got a similar style of things, particularly in regards to how fast moving it is, but it's an improvement over The Colour of Magic, I think. I enjoy The Light Fantastic. I also really love the title, The Light Fantastic. Just sounds great. And I really like the kind of finale, the build towards something super sinister, and then what it's revealed to be is quite cool. I'm going to put this in very good after Reaper Man, but before, yeah, there we go. It's a good place for it. Lords and Ladies. Oh, we might have a contender for the best. This is Elves. This is Terry writing Elves, and he wrote them as evil. And I absolutely love it. It is a witch's book. Before Carpe Juggling. This is so much fucking fun, but also so damn sinister, so damn creepy, so damn tense. I love Lords and Ladies. This is fascinating way of writing elves. I just love the idea that they're so entrancing, the glamour of them, yet they're so evil. This goes in the best. The question is where? Okay, there. In between Guards and Thud. Sticking with the witches, we're for Masquerade, a story set in Ankh-Morpork, a return through Ankh-Morpork for Granny. She would have gone there in an earlier book. And it's mainly mimicking the Phantom of the Opera. This is a funny one. This has got some great comedic edges, comedic stories and characters, with a well-told take on a classic tale. Masquerade it's a great book. It is a great book. I'm just wondering, where do I put it? I prefer Carpe Juggling, I prefer Fifth Element. Thief of Time, in between Thief of Time and The Fifth Elephant. menatarms, another Guards book. This is the one that surrounds the gun. The gun, the powerful weapon introduced to Ankh-Morpork and creates chaos. An absolute wonderful murder mystery with some generally awful moments of just what happens to characters. And just fascinating read as this gun, or the gon as it's spelt, creates so much trouble, and it's just one. This goes in the best, and I love this a lot. I think I'm going to put this above Thud and After Lords and Ladies. Mort, So influential is this book that I named one of my cats after the titular character. This is Death taking on an apprentice named Mort. He gets to know Susan. They will eventually fall in love and have a child, which would not Susan. No, why have I forgotten her name? I've forgotten Death's daughter's name. Damn, that's annoying. But anyway, Mort would have a child with her, and they would who would be Susan Stow-Heliot in a later story, sort of. Kind of brushed over that. Yeah, this is another Death book. I don't love it though. I love the character of Mort. I love the story. I love Death kind of losing his powers and Mort getting them as the movie goes on. The book goes on. And that makes for a fascinating read. The finale is very, very tense. It's a very good book. I'm going to put this one. I prefer this over... I want to put this top of very good. Yeah. No. There's a good place for it, actually, whatever it is. Which leads us to moving pictures to take on Hollywood. Glamour. Really, really, really based around the Dungeon Dimensions, if you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Here's the thing. I remember the story quite strongly of this one. Particularly Gaspode, who... God almighty, gotta love Gaspode. But I don't remember the lead that strongly. I can remember the outline plot. Dibbler is heavily featured in this, and that was, as a person that played the game, that was fascinating. I think Moving Pictures has a fantastic story, maybe not the best characters. I think this one goes in very good, and I think I'm going to put it ahead of the Light Fantastic, in between Weeper Man. Right. This is the one I've been waiting to get to, because I already know where this one's going. It is Night Watch. This is another Guards book, and it's my favourite. It is, to date, and has remained my number one Discworld book. The one that I tell everyone is the best, not just for its incredible story, which involves time travel, as well as a famous event that took place in the history of Ankh-Morpork that we've only heard mentioned, but now takes place in this, but also has... my favourite Discworld villain. And he's a human character. Terry didn't write many human villains, but the one he created here, Carcer, is the absolute dirt worst. He is one that you just cannot wait, desperately want to see him get his comeuppance. And that line of, I can see your house from here, will send shudders down your spine. Night Watch. It is the best of the best. It goes there, and I can't see, nothing else is going ahead of it. Excuse me. Right, go way back to Equal Rights. A really, really interesting story about female rights and stuff like that. And it's basically a girl, a female, wanting to become a wizard. And it just isn't a done thing. Girls become witches, boys become wizards. And it's about breaking those conventions. It stars Granny Weatherwax as a major player, but she's not the Granny we know. She's very much just a bit character, a bit emboldened. That's odd to go back and read. It is a good story, though. It is a good story, and I do like it. It does kind of feel like he jams the Dungeon Dimension stuff in at the end, just to have some sort of finale. But it is a good story. It's just not a great showcase of characters that I love more. I'm going to put this one at the top. No, Hogfather or Equal Rights. You know what? I think I'd rather read Equal Rights. Yeah. Okay, we might have a contender for the OK bracket. It is Pyramids, which uses the Egyptian culture and lots of things from that time period to tell an interesting story. I say interesting, it doesn't stick long in the memory. The imagery it creates, I think, is more interesting than anything else. That's what really stands out. The idea of an Egyptian prince going to Ankh-Morpork to learn to become a thief is quite interesting. An assassin. He's an assassin. Yeah, that's right. And then obviously going back to his home where his father has died, and he has to take up the mantle of pharaoh effectively. And the place is just old. They live in olden times, and time gets weird, and it's unique. It's certainly one of the unique stories, and a standalone one as well. Those characters, most of those characters, I don't think ever came back. But it doesn't excite me. It never excited me. I'm going to put this in OK, but I'm going to put it there, yeah. Okay, Raising Steam. This was the third and final story of Moist von Lippvig. Terry, after break, getting so much success with going postal, kind of continued that story several times. We would have Making Money, which was next, which had Moist trying to turn around the banking system of Ankh-Morpork, to them Raising Steam, which was obviously to do with the railroads. I hate saying this, but it just doesn't. Raising Steam was disappointed me. If I'm being truthful, it disappointed me. It felt a bit rushed. It felt a bit unnecessary. It felt like Moist had already hit the highest heights he would get. Arguably, I don't think we ever needed a sequel, a continuation from Going Postal. But Making Money has positives, whereas Raising Steam, it just doesn't, unfortunately. I'm going to put it an okay. And I'm going to put it top of okay. Which brings us to The Shepherd's Crown, the final book that came out. It wasn't complete. This is important to get across because unfortunately it's just going to go into the okay and probably bottom of okay. In fact, I'm going to do it now. But basically, Shepherd's Crown was incomplete. They put it together as much as they could to get it released, to tie up and finish Terry's story. And truth be told, other than an incredibly impactful and emotional moment, does that... No, that doesn't get it above. It's just not... It's not great. It's not a great story. It's all over the place. You can tell it's not complete, unfortunately. And although it's hard, I completely understand why, and I'm not punishing it for that. It just is okay. Small Gods. Okay. This one is absolutely incredibly important to me as well. Small Gods had such an impact on me, particularly the outlook and the story, not just the story that's told, which is an incredible story about belief and how important belief is. It's also about facing down adversity and sticking to your beliefs no matter what, even when it seems like impossible to do so. I absolutely love Small Gods. It's not Night Watch. It's not as good as Going Postal, but it certainly goes up there. This is a standalone book. Small Gods can be read on its own. I would say if you really, really want to read a Discworld book that's standalone and doesn't have any real connections to anything else, although the religion does come up elsewhere, Small Gods is one you should do. Snuff. Another Guards book. Love Snuff. Great story. And I love the idea that even when on holiday, Vimes just can't get out of these issues. Snuff's fascinating. Again, it's building characters up that we already know and love and feel like... It never felt like he reached his apex of violence. I know he pushed him quite far and it seemed like he could never really go any further, but then there was always something extra. Snuff is fantastic. I don't think it's as good as many of the other Guards books. I would put it in great, but I would put it the bottom of great. Yeah, that's a good place. I like that. Soul Music, a death book. This one is about rock and roll and has rock and roll and Dungeons & Dimensions mixed together. The good stuff in this is the wizards. The wizards who become influenced by the sound of rock and roll. And there's a lot of funny dialogue, a lot of funny stuff in it. Beyond that, though, Soul Music never one I'd go back to. It's got some cool ass visuals and it's fun to have rock and roll in our Discworld world. And as always, it has sinister connotations. I think it's a good book. I think I'm going to put it there, above Hogfather, after Equal Rights. Equal Rights above. Yeah, there. Swap those two over. There we go. Sorcery. Sorcery. It's basically not a continuation, but early books were very heavy Rincewind. We had Colour Magic, we had Light Fantastic, and then we had Sorcery shortly after a couple of others like Equal Rights. Sorcery is brilliant. It's a magical story, might put some of people if you didn't really like the Colour Magic, Light Fantastic, but this is all about Rincewind, man. All about Rincewind and Innocence, and the ending. Oh, that ending is just the bollocks. I love Sorcery. This is going in great, and it's going to go after Feet of Clay. There's a beautiful place for it. Right, Making Money. I already touched upon it. It's the second Moist von Lippvig story related to the bank. Got some great elements to it. I love the idea that, being the postmaster and all that lacks the thrill and excitement, which poses him a problem and ends up seeing him put in the position he is. Of course, he's got to deal with villains who see him as changing the status quo. It's very, very clever, but it's no going postal. It's as simple as that. I think it's a good book. Just a good book, I'm afraid, but top of good. The Last Continent. Oh my goodness me. The Last Continent. What a great book this is. This is Rincewind in XXXX, which is Australia, basically, which is just fantastic. There's a lot of fun here, and this is a very hopeful story that blends. What works so well is it blends two stories. You have the Rincewind side in the modern day continent of XXXX, which is a dry, deserted place that people barely survive on. And then we have our wizards that find basically a portal to a gorgeous, lush beach land place, which turns out to be XXXX back in the day. And those two worlds combine together for a great ending. Love The Last Continent. It goes in the best. I'm going to put it there. Yep. The Truth, which is really, really cleverly written stuff about print, about newspapers. I love the terminology. I can travel around the world before the truth has even got its boots on. I think that's how it's said, which tells you a lot of what this story is about. I do love the idea of a character trying to do the right thing against insurmountable odds. It's like a newspaper in modern days trying to, be like an honest, non-biased paper when faced up against the likes of the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Independent, all these papers that have their agendas. This is very clever, and I do like the comedy that of the people coming in and wanting stories written about their amusingly shaped vegetables and things like that. But it's not one that I always go to and go, yeah, that's a great book there. I think it's going to go on good, and I think I'm going to put it up there. I think I'd rather read The Truth over Weird Sisters, but I'd read Hogfather over it. The We Free Men, the introduction of Tiffany Aching. Great. It's reintroduced Nat McFeagle, who had previously appeared in Carpe Juggling. Hilarious bunch of characters that are kind of tongue-in-cheek poke at Scots and Smurfs combined. Their behaviour and their antics with Tiffany makes for a lot of fun. This is great fun. The introduction of Tiffany at this early stage was really, really interesting. She was just finding her feet as she, before she was even a witch, really. I think this is one that belongs in great, if I'm honest, but the bottom of great. Two more. We have Unseen Academicals, which is football. It's all based in University, Unseen University, which in itself was fucking great because I love the Wizards, and it played around the idea of football. Rincewind makes a few appearances here and there, which is at this stage as well. Rincewind didn't have any more. The Last Continent was the last full Rincewind book, so him popping up in stories like this always put a smile on my face. It's not the best book. It's not even a great book. I think it's a very good book, but I would put it at the bottom. And last but not least, we have Witches Abroad, which takes upon a lot of things from... Well, its entire thesis is about fairy tales acting out in real life. So you get a right crossover of stuff from Cinderella. What else is there? I can't remember what half of them are now, but it takes place in a great location that's kind of play on New Orleans. Get their fairy godmother stuff as well. All based around our trio of witches who are fantastic in this. It's great fun. Witches Abroad. I would put this up at the up and great, but after Feet of Clay. And that's it. There's my ranking of the Discworld Book Series. That got really hard. A lot of them could just sit happily beside each other. So we're going to go through them now, starting from the bottom upwards. So what I say is the worst, although I'm doing air quotes with that. We have The Shepherd's Crown. Then we have Eric. Then we have Monstrous Regiment. Then we have Pyramids. Then we have Colour of Magic. And then we have Raising Steam. Those are the Discworld books I think are just okay. Then we go to the Discworld books that I think are good. The Last Hero, A Hatful of Sky, Wintersmith, Weird Sisters, The Truth, Hogfather, Soul Music, Equal Rights, and Making Money. Those are the good Discworld books. The very good ones, Unseen Academicals, I Shall Wear Midnight, The Light Fantastic, Moving Pictures, Reaper Man, Mort, and Interesting Times. Then we go to the great. We have The We Free Men, Snuff, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, Thief of Time, Masquerade, The Fifth Elephant, Carpe Juggling, Jingo, Sorcery, Witches Abroad, Feet of Clay. Wow, that list alone is just so strong. And then we go to the best. We have The Last Continent. We have Thud. We have menatarms. We have Lords and Ladies. We have Guards of Gods. We have Small Gods. We have Going Postal. And we have Night Watch. I think it speaks volumes that in that one alone there are 4 of the Guards books now. I think that tells you that is the strongest stuff Terry wrote. But all of them, particularly the top 3, Night Watch, Going Postal, and Small Gods, I would say are my 3 favourite Discworld books. I'd love to know your ranking or what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?